All right, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Right now, I want to do a little mini review of the two St. Croix Legend Tournament flipping rods. One's the flippin', it's 7'6", heavy power with moderate fast action. The other one is 7'11", okay, with heavy power and moderate fast action. So there are two rods that you can select from that line for flipping and pitching, okay. I'm going to sort of contrast and compare both because I have both and I've used both. Let me set this up because it's important, I think, to start with. First of all, I don't punch into heavy grass mats. We don't do that much here in Arizona. I've never done it ever. Something I'll do maybe later this year when I get out to Lake Havasu or perhaps Martinez Lake, right, where they have lots of grass. So I don't do that. What I do fish is massively heavy cover, flooded timber, flooded brush, mangled messes of branches and stuff everywhere, but it's wood, okay? And so I've used both of these rods in this heavy cover and they both work well, but there's a difference between these two rods. And the major difference is the rod weight, okay? The 711, which is this one right here, okay, it weighs 6.6 ounces. Now that's pretty heavy for a rod, but remember this is 7'11", heavy power, okay? Keep that in mind because it's fatiguing to me, and I would say that because of the type of fishing I do, I don't think I'd buy this rod again, okay? As long as I have it, I'm going to put it to use. I'm going to tie on a little heavier baits, a little bigger baits, and I'm going to use it for sure because it's kind of actually handy to have more than one flipping rod when you're flipping heavy cover, and that's what the bite is. So I think that's pretty sweet. Now this rod, as a matter of fact, it's pretty funny. Let me just talk about this too when I switch rods here. If I'm flipping with this, pitching with this for an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, hour and a half or something, some long period of time, and I set this one down and I go to pick up this rod because it has maybe a different bait tied on it, this rod feels like a feather. Like when I set that one down and I pick this one, I'm like, oh my goodness, this rod is light. Even now, it feels that way. I think part of the situation is that this is such a longer rod that it feels tip heavy, okay? There's a word for that. I don't know what it is. The rod manufacturers talk about it. I've heard them use the word, but it has to do with physics and leverage and all that kind of stuff, right? It's a heavy rod. Let's just keep it at that. So when I pick this one up, it's a little shorter rod and it feels better balanced in my hand, whatever it is, so I like it. Now, so this rod, I would definitely buy again, and I highly recommend this rod for flipping. Anybody in Arizona that wants to spend, $380 to get a decent, high-quality rod with a 15-year warranty, I suggest the St. Croix Legend Tournament flipping rod. If you're willing to spend more and get a lighter flipping rod with the proper action, which is, heavy power, moderate fast action, okay, and you can spend that money, you go ahead and spend it, because anytime you can get a flipping stick, whatever kind you like, that can make it lighter, go for it, because it'll less fatiguing, and with less fatiguing, you can, when you're ready to set the hook, you can move the fish faster, all of that. So keep that in mind. Another interesting aspect is on the 7.6 model here, I'm using a Revo SXSS, and that stands for shallow spool. It's designed for pitching and flipping. I like it on this rod here. It's got an 8.1 to 1 gear ratio, if I recall. It's got a 95 millimeter handle, so you can get it going. Now, I actually had this reel on this rod, and I did not like it. The gear ratio was too high. The handle was too wide here, and it just didn't. With this big rod here, I couldn't take the line up. It was like I would get stuck, So that's not the case for the 7.6 rod. This is a great reel to go with it. It's a $180 reel, so it's cost effective. I mean, a lot of times this rod sits in my rod locker for months on end without using it, so why put a $300 reel on it or a $250 reel? $180 reel is fantastic. It works. Pitches amazingly well, so it's a good fit. Now on this one, I have found a nice reel for this. I bought a 7, St. Croix 7. It's a GF. This has 4 bearings and 1 roller bearing. So I don't know how this reel would last if I used it as a cranking or spinnerbait. Maybe there's not enough bearings to keep it smooth, but it's not the case for flipping, is it? I mean, basically, if you can pitch nicely with it, and this rod pitches pretty, heavier weights, 3/8 up to, I've used up to 3/4 of an ounce on this setup here. And, it's a beautiful reel for that. It's 7:3 to 1, so it's a slower gear ratio. And I don't know if you can tell if I show this to you, but the handle is a tad smaller in the center point there. I think this is a 95 millimeter, and I think this is a 90 millimeter. Well, that little bit amount of difference and the slower gear ratio allows me, when I set the hook and I got a fish on it, I can be working it, and I can actually pull the line in. Now that could be just me, by the way. Younger guys, stronger guys, all that, they might be just fine with a super high-speed reel on this rod, but it doesn't work for me, so I'm not going to do that. Of these two rods, if I were to buy one, if I didn't know, I would buy the 7.6, and I wouldn't buy the 7.11, given my situation. Here in Arizona, I'm just going to use fluorocarbon because of the when I'm fishing wood. I think on this rod here, I'm using 20-pound fluoro, and I think I can go up to 22-pound if I wanted to. And on here, I'll just use 20, but I can actually go down to 18 if I felt like it. Sometimes we flip in water that's actually, you can see 3 to 4 foot of water, then you can go down to 18, and I don't think this rod would overpower 18. Now, it's not to say this rod, I would say this would overpower 18-pound line. I just wouldn't do it because you got a lot of leverage, okay? So keep that in mind. When I'm fishing, I'll set this up two ways. I'll put a little bit smaller, lighter weight baits, I should say, on here, and I'll put heavier baits on here. Sometimes I won't have them both out, but sometimes I'll need them both. So that's how I do it. I think in the cover that I fish here in Arizona, I can have a 7.6, and that's enough. Then again, would I have two of them? That's the thing that I never had before. I never had two, but now that I have two, it's kind of nice to have two flipping sticks when you're in battle with them, because you can switch baits up a little faster. God only knows how much money we all can spend on these darn rods and reels, but nonetheless, that's just what I've learned, and it's pretty interesting. Okay, so thank you very much. This short little contrast between the two St. Croix Legend Tournament flipping rods. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe and leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Have a great day. See you soon.